Welcome to the Kabbalah of self-change. We're now in the middle, and I think actually on the tail end of a discussion of the tool of tefillah or prayer as a means to transform ourselves, which is what this is all about. So I want to do a brief review of what we did last week, and then we're going to move on. In order to understand what Rav Kook said in this wonderful metaphor he had about the prayer of the soul, which we'll review in just a second, we had to take a step back and talk about really fundamental principles of Kabbalah, and that is how the world came into being, the relationship between the infinite, unknowable God and the finite material world. We talked about the notion that God brings the world into being and that the world and everything in it has a contingent reality. It's all dependent upon the larger reality, which is its context and its root, which is God. The only thing that really exists in a sense of independent existence is God. And everything else that exists is existing dependent upon God. And we even use the image of everything existing internal to God. We use the image of thinking about a picture in your mind, like a flower, if you remember, and how that image of the flower, the mental image, is that real or not when you're thinking about it? Well, it is real. It's as real as a mental image. It's just a mental image is not as real as it thinks it is. Okay. As we pointed out last week, that's sort of the irony of our existence. In some ways, we're sort of a mental image in the divine mind, and we only exist because God is imagining us into existence at every single moment. This is just a metaphor. This is not meant to be taken literally, and it's not wholly true. But for the purpose of explaining how our existence is wholly dependent upon a larger existence, which is an ultimate existence, which is God, it's a useful image, useful idea. And of course, and then to get to the point, that the irony is that the image thinks it's real. So we're sort of this, as it were, figment of God's imagination, except that we think we're real. Kind of like, if you think about that much, bad things can happen to your brain. Okay, so beware. But the point is that our existence is wholly dependent upon our root in divinity, in God. And our wholeness is a function of being attached to our root. Imagine sort of this image of detaching a plant from its root, it withers and dies. That's what happens to us when we don't cultivate a rootedness in our source, which is God. That we actually have a very serious sense of lack through mere existence. It's like without doing anything bad, it's just my existence bothers me. I'm not talking about the state of my bank account or health or whatever source exists in the world. I'm not talking about that. That's a different source of anxiety. I'm talking about, to use a fancy term, but it happens to be in this case, it's literally true, existential anxiety. Anxiety flowing from my existence. This fact that I exist, but I don't feel rooted in my source. It's all subconscious. We even quoted Carl Gustav Jung, the famous psychologist. The first Jungian psychologist. Isn't that crazy? What a coincidence. Where he said that the ultimate root of so much dysfunction is that sense of being disconnected from our spiritual source. Even quoted a verse from Psalms. about desiring God like a deer, desiring the water brooks, and that people engage in all kinds of self-destructive behaviors in an attempt to kind of plug up or silence that deep yearning they have, yearning for their source, yearning for our root in divinity, yearning for wholeness. They think that alcohol or drugs or sex or gambling or all kinds of terrible things will fill it. Even they think that Torah will fill it. It's very tricky. People can become very neurotic about mitzvahs, thinking that, right, that neurotic mitzvah observance will, don't misinterpret me. Someone's going to walk away saying, Rabbi Zev said that mitzvah observance is neurotic. Oh my God, I did not say that. It can be neurotic. There are Orthodox psychologists and psychiatrists who live in places where there are Orthodox Jews, like New York, who make a good living from seeing Orthodox Jews who that the Torah comes for them a kind of expression of their lack of proper balance in spiritual and psychological emotional health. So what happens? So we have this tremendous desire to be connected to our root naturally. So we saw last week as Rav Kook uses this incredible expression of the soul always praying, the nishama, right? Hatfilah hamatmedet shel hanishama, the eternal, ongoing davening of the soul. Our soul is always davening. I hope you remember this from last week. Our soul is always davening. What do he mean by that? What does that mean? It means what we're talking about now. It's what sometimes is called in Hasidut or in Kabbalah, dveikut, yearning. This yearning. The soul is yearning constantly, ceaselessly to be connected to its source, which is God. Constantly yearning for that. And so he calls that prayer. It's like the soul is always praying to be connected to its root. We used last week the image of taken from the world of psychology, of attachment theory. And as we talked about last week, right, there's a whole field of psychology and within different psychological schools I think it's pretty clear and obvious. You don't need a scientific analysis or study to prove this. The great significance of being attached to our source. So for a child, the attachment is in the womb. And then when the child leaves the womb, the mere existence is painful, right? Existential anxiety of a baby removed from its womb. It wants to feel that sense of attachment. And as I mentioned last week, there have been studies done taking animals away from mother. They wilt away and die, animals taken away from their mother. Children who have been institutionalized. It's traumatic, and there's a lasting damage from that. So something really powerful happened to me this week, and I want to share it with you. It's not very exciting. So in case you were getting all excited about this adventure, I'm going to tell you. Somebody listened to this class over the internet. I believe it was the internet. I forget already. And sent me a poem that they wrote based upon what we talked about last week. And I want to share this poem with you and with the listeners, thinking about this notion of attachment, the baby attached to the mother in the womb, and that sense of wholeness that state of being is, and how mere birth itself is a crisis of losing that sense of attachment, and how in a certain way the rest of our lives we're trying to restore that sense of security, attachment, of being nurtured that we had in the womb. Listen to this. Anonymous. It's not the name of the poem. The poet's name is anonymous. With hands spread and eyes closed, the unknowable essence of God is spread out before me. all time and space, without beginning or end. Ein Sof, without limit. Like the unborn within the womb of eternity, with a capital E. Gently I twist and turn, oblivious to his amniotic embrace, not yet complete. Every contour of my landscape, heartbeat and blade of grass, a divine kiss. Tenuous like a drop of dew, I cling to the one who made me. Oh my gosh. Okay, yes, Larry.
So, I mean,
Just speak up, maybe so microphone's
so,
trying to catch.
I mean, that poem evokes, like the drop in the ocean.
He's talking about the dew clinging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in a big, vast environment, and it seems what's missing is their significance, even as that drop. There's, they're all, you can easily get overwhelmed with that perception, and it's beautiful words, but even that drop has meaning.
Absolutely. There's a reason we exist. There's a reason we exist.
The dew is so fragile.
Yeah.
This is what I'm taking it as. It's really fragile.
The Seder. Okay, let's now go back now into the text. I want to start to develop this this theme of Rav Kook, of the eternal ongoing prayer of the soul, and see other texts from Rav Kook and how he, the different nuances that he expresses. So we're on the second page of this handout. We're going to take a look at the second Hebrew source on the page, Inyanei Tefillah, Tefillah Hamatmene Shel Lishma Bet, right, where it says prayer does act as its rectification unless it stems from the idea. Actually said prayer does not. I can use the English translation here. I'm going to make my own translation. So, okay, so everybody see where we are? Prayer does not act as its rectification unless, okay, but now read the Hebrew. Ein hatfilah ba'a ketikuna, ki im mitoch hamachshava, shebemet haneshama hi tamid mitpalelet. Prayer cannot be efficacious, cannot play its proper role, cannot be therapeutic unless the one who's praying has a consciousness that in truth the soul is constantly davening. For prayer to work, for prayer to be proper, before we pray, before we daven, from a siddur, from a prayer book, we have to remind ourselves that though I'm about to daven, right, though I'm about to pray, my soul is praying constantly, every single moment. And if we don't have that consciousness, our prayer won't work. It's not going to be wholly effective and proper.
Rabbi,
Okay, yes.
you started with Hatfilah, but the end, and my Hebrew's getting there, but is Hipalel. So you're doing, at the end, you're talking about prayer being back and forth or attached. It uses Hipalel.
You mean talking about the reflexive sense?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's an important point.
Your sentence.
That's an important point. We'll talk about
Okay.
more of that later. Halo hi afa umitrapeket al doda. Behold, the soul soars and yearns for her beloved. Below shum hefse klal, without any interruption whatsoever. The soul is soaring on high and yearning for its beloved. Ela shebishat hatfilah hamasit, harei hatfilah hanishmatit hatadirit, hi mitgala before. It's just that when you daven from a sidur, practically, that practical, concrete expression of prayer, at that moment, the prayer of the soul, which is ongoing, becomes expressed outwardly. So what's he saying here? 2 points. When a person is davening, you know what's happening? There's 2 layers of what's happening, because the soul's always davening. I wonder what sidur the soul is davening. You think it's the Art Scroll, or maybe it's the that new one that just came out, the Koran, or the Chabad sidur, maybe. I don't know. I'm joking, obviously. So the soul is always davening. So, but when you actually come into shul or at home, wherever you may be, and you take out a sidur and you pray, what you're doing is actually you're giving voice, you're giving a realized form, a revealed form to that which is actually going on every single moment inside. Now, let's just return to basic principles. What do we mean when we say that soul is davening? It's a beautiful way of saying the soul is always, help me out, some words, yearning. The soul is yearning for connection. It's always yearning. That's the image he used when he said the soul is soaring and yearning for its beloved. So we daven, in a practical sense, that only works truly if it's a verbal, external, concrete expression of what's going on inside, which is the soul's yearning for attachment to God. This is an extremely poetic, you might have caught that. This is poetry, but what a powerful way of saying, let me take a step back for a second. I've always thought this about Rav Kook, the power of language. I could say what Rav Kook just said in a very simple way. I could say, it's important when you daven to have kavanah, to have focused engagement. And people, that's standard. You know, people always say that. When you daven, you have to have kavanah, right? You have to be focused and it has to mean something. He's saying the same thing, but he's saying it in such a incredibly powerful way with such incredible
that doesn't have any emotional.
Yeah, it doesn't have that emotional. And I sometimes use the phrase or an image that's from science in terms of using different types of drugs for therapy that I'm pretty sure what I'm saying is right, even though I'm way out of my expertise here, that there are 2 types of research when they do, let's say, cancer research. There's trying to find, let's say, a drug which can, kill cancer cells or do something about the production of cancer cells. And then there's another group, there's another area of science which explores how do we get this drug into the system, a delivery mechanism, into the system which will be most efficacious, which will most focus on exactly the cells it needs to focus on, right? Do we target it, right, properly? That's a whole other science. And I think that that's like what's going on here in a sense, that I could say the idea in a simple way, but it somehow, it doesn't touch the soul the way Rav Kook's incredibly poetic way of saying this. Okay?
Like sitting here or sitting in the middle of Yosemite.
That's true. And so therefore, when we daven, we have to take a step out, or step back, or time out and say, wait a second. Okay. What am I about to do right now? I'm about to give external expression to the fact that my soul is always davening. My soul is always yearning to be attached to its root. And that's what I'm going to do with this prayer book right now. I'm going to give expression to that. And if you don't, then you're mumbling words. Mumbling words has limited value. Okay? I guess it's better than nothing. Okay. And as I think we've mentioned all along here, whenever we talk about this kind of thing, I want to start crying because You know, we do daven on a regular basis. And look at our davening. I shouldn't, I don't want to impugn, is that the word? Anybody else's davening, but come on, what are we doing here? Our morning minyan, people are in a hurry, got to go someplace.
Isn't that what that first, when you're doing the Amida, there's that first little phrase before you actually start?
Yeah, we say, God, open my mouth.
Open my mouth.
Right?
Yeah.
Open my mouth, right? And then my mouth, I open my lips and my mouth will sing your praises.
Yeah.
We need to pray. For prayer to be, like Rav Kook says here, ketikuna. Tikkun. Correct. Proper. Efficacious. It's almost a miracle, right? We have to pray, God, help me to be connected so that my external prayer is reflecting what's going on deep inside of me. Now watch this. Are you ready to cry? Oh, sorry, Marguerite. Zehu iduna ve'inuga. This is the delight of prayer. This is the pleasure of prayer. Haddara v'tifarta. This is the beauty of prayer. This is the splendor of prayer. Shelat tefillah. Shehi mit dama l'shoshana hapotachat et aleha hanaim likrat hatal. O nochach karnei hashemesh hamofi'im aleha v'orah. It's like a beautiful rose that opens its most pleasant leaves towards the dew or towards the rays of the sunshine appearing upon it. V'lachen, and therefore our sages say, halavai yitpalel adam kol hayom, if only a person could pray all day long. I want to go back. Look what I'm saying. This is the delight of prayer. It's pleasure. It's beauty. It's splendor. Like a rose opening up its beautiful leaves towards the dew or towards the rays of the sun that are shining upon it. If only we could pray all day long. You see, if we can pray in a way which is giving expression to our soul, which is really praying all day long, 24/7, even when we're asleep, then there's nothing more delightful about prayer. There's nothing more beautiful than prayer. There's nothing more splendid than prayer. There's nothing more pleasant than prayer. There's nothing more pleasurable. We're connected. We're integrated. We have a few minutes of restoring our sense of attachment. A few minutes of restoring our sense of wholeness. What could be better than that? But look what we really do. Okay. Any answer questions on anything we said so far?
I like the part about the connected. Otherwise, Hashem's just a creator. But that yearning and the davening soul is what makes him God instead of just creator.
Meaning that we're attached.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask your opinion, my fellow travelers here. How about that image? How do you understand that about, it's like a rose that opens its beautiful flowers to catch the dew or to capture the rays of sunlight that beam upon it?
They're both vital to the existence of the rose.
Ooh, beautiful. Thank you, Larry. His name is Larry, by the way. Okay, and he's great. So what a beautiful image, that the rose cannot exist without hydration, without water, moisture, and it can't exist without sunlight. So like the rose opening up its petals in order to receive dew and to soak up the sunshine is an image, thank you, because I really didn't exactly understand the image there, but now that you say it, I'm like, why didn't I catch that? You're right. It's the image of the soul yearning for its source of sustenance.
It's like Psalm 42 again.
And what's the source of the sustenance of the soul?
This is dear ones by the stream.
Is the divine dew, the divine light. That's our soul, is this rose opening up its petals. Almost imagine maybe like Birkat Kohanim, like sort of
When it opens up petals, it's
open
going to
the
get more
petals.
of the light.
Very nice, because like you want to have more surface area.
That's
Okay.
because I
Speak a little bit so the microphone can get you.
that same emotion does get evoked in me when we actually have a Kohen and you can do it privately or in front of everybody during the Birkat Kohanim, going through that process.
Of sort of receiving the
Yes.
divine,
Yes.
the divine dew, the divine light.
Switching that back
Yeah.
and forth.
Matter of fact, actually, those are the words of the Birkat Kohanim.
Mhm.
That God should shine His light on you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, ready to move on? Let's look at the next page. Next source. I'm sorry. Hatfilah hi haideal shel kol olamim. Prayer is the ideal, the source of yearning, or not source, but the goal of yearning, I should say, the object of yearning, or not the object of yearning, it's the yearning. Prayer is the yearning of all worlds. Kol havaya kula lemekor chayeha I oreget. All of being in its entirety, to the source of its life it yearns. Kol tzemach, the kol siach. Every plant, every bush, kol gargir chol, every grain of sand, the chol regev adama, every piece of dirt, kol asher bo chayim niglim, everything in which there's a life force which is revealed, the kol asher bo chayim kusim, everything in which the life force is concealed. Kol kitnei yitzira, everything which is of minute dimension in existence, v'chol gdolecha, and everything which is of gargantuan stature in existence, shchakei me'al, the sarfei kodesh, the heavens above, and the holy srafim, the holy angels, kol hapratiyot shebechol yesh, every detail of all of existence, v'chol klaluto, and every generality, hakol homeh, everything is yearning, shoeif, everything is aspiring, oreid v'shokek, everything is thirsting, lechemdat shlemut mikoro yoyon, to the delight of the holiness of its supernal source. Achai, hakadosh, hatohor, v'kabir, that source which is living with a capital L, which is holy with a capital H, which is so pure with a capital P, which is so great with a capital G. V'adam, and the person, sofeg et kol hashkikot halalu b'cholet. The person is absorbing all of this yearning. Where's that yearning? It's everything. Every leaf, every grain of sand, every star, every pebble, every brook, every animal, is all yearning for its divine source. And all of that yearning energy, we're like sponges and we absorb it. B'cholet u'b'chosha, at every moment. V'hu mitromem u'mit'aleh b'tishukot kodsho. And the person then becomes elevated in that holy yearning. Uvat Torah gilui l'tishukot romumot el eile batfilah. And when does all of that yearning become expressed? In davening. Miromem hu adam batfilah kol yitzur. When a person davens, they're elevating all of existence. Ma'ached hu amo. The person is uniting his nation. It kol hayesh, all of existence. Malet kol, he's elevating everything. Miromem et kol makor habracha makor hachaim. He's elevating everything to its source of blessing and source of life. Let's talk about this. Wow, what's Rav Kook adding here? So we started off talking about how our soul is constantly yearning, and that when we daven, in the normative sense of the word, we're giving voice, kind of in a literal sense, we're giving voice to the soul. The soul's davening, the soul's yearning. Now we're going one step further. What else is davening, according to this paragraph? Everything in existence. The whole world is davening. The whole cosmos is davening. Everything is davening. You know why? For the same reason that our soul is davening. Because, as Larry explained a few minutes ago, just like the image of that rose opening its petals for that divine dew and that divine light, yearning to be connected to source, the whole world, everything wants to be connected to its source. Amazing. Do you hear it now? Let's listen for a second. Let's hear the whole world davening. Did you hear it? I heard it. Now we take it one step further. He relates to the interaction between this chorus of all of the cosmos. This chorus of the cosmos. It's all davening. And what did he say? That the person is so vague. He both absorbs it, and then when we daven, it's like a feedback system. What do? We then elevate it. So there's this incredible interaction between the davening of the cosmos and our davening. When we daven, we're like energized and fed by the davening of the cosmos, by the yearning of the cosmos. And when we actually, and then when we daven, there's the feedback. We then actually cause a kind of elevation and uplifting of all of existence at that moment. So we're both nurtured and intensified by having the celestial choir in our ears as we daven, absorbing that energy, that divine energy, and at the same time, we feed back into the cosmos this elevation. Okay. Shall we move on? Okay, now this is going to be a little tough. Can you handle it? Thank you, Hashem, for coffee. I don't know how people do it without it, but I should probably learn how. But meanwhile, Kishe'avru yamim v'shanim below tefillah b'chavana. When years and days have passed without davening with kavanah. Kavanah, we now know what that means. Where you're davening externally in a way which is giving voice to what? The soul's davening. Right? Your soul's always davening. And our davening has to be giving voice to the soul's davening. What happens if we haven't experienced that in a while? Days, years, our entire life, maybe. You know what happens? Mitkabtzin belev avnei negef rabim. There gather in the heart many stones of affliction. Shemargishim al yadam kvedut ruach pnimit. That we then feel, because of those stones of affliction, we feel a heaviness, an internal heaviness of the spirit. You know what this sounds like? I don't know why these images come to my mind. I think I need to discuss it with my therapist. Tara, are you available for therapy? Okay, thank you. How much do you charge?
It's not worth anything, so I don't charge anything.
Okay. So, you know the image I'm getting? I don't know why. Kidney stones. Okay. So you know that people who don't drink enough water, you can become susceptible to kidney stones. So when a person, because he uses this image, when a person hasn't experienced, for days and years, this davening where there's a flow, right? There's a flow from the soul davening, right? Which is then given verbal expression when you actually daven in actuality. And if we don't do that, what happens? These stones collect. That's the image I got. And when those stones collect, you feel this heaviness of the spirit. Do you realize what he's saying here about we go through periods of depression, of sadness, of a sense of heaviness? Do you realize what he's saying here? That it could be the source of our sense of lethargy, that heaviness, that sadness, that depression, that the source of healing and perhaps the source of that heavy sense we feel inside is that we haven't done it. We need to flush out those stones, to use that image. How do you flush them out? Through davening, through reconnecting, through reattaching ourselves to our source, to get that flow coming from the soul davening to then express itself through verbal, formal davening. It's going to flush out those stones. We're going to feel lightness. Kisheruach hatov chozer. When that good spirit returns, that feeling of lightness, if we daven, you ever notice how every once in a while there's a good feeling of davening? It's hard to do this. Doesn't that feel just really nice? You feel light. Feel secure in that divine amniotic fluid, like that poem I read there, right? That one has experienced the gift of prayer which was given from on high. I like that image. To experience this easy, it's a divine gift. We got to try. But if we can experience that divine gift, what happens then? All of those stones go away. All of those roadblocks open up. All of those closures and obstacles are flushed out. And And all of those many obstructions which had been gathered together in that river flowing from the living soul depart, flushed away. Ve'im ota ha'aliyah hanishmatit shehi olah b'chol tefillah b'yachas le'eretz zmana. And together with that elevation of the soul that we experience when davening properly, achuzim yeduim ba'im betoch marpet et chisron avar. There is a cleansing and healing of all of the pain of the past. I'm thinking another image. You know, even when people heal or their surgery, their scar tissue is healed from the past. Omnam lo bevat achat nimna chisaron. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one good davening. Avaholehu mitmaleh. It happens over time, gradually. V'hatzo harshalat tefillah holechu megaleh et orotav. And the radiant light of davening continually, gradually will reveal its brightness, its light. Wow, what a tool we have. What a blessing for healing, for therapy, to be able to experience that sense of lightness and the washing away of all of that scar tissue from all of the trauma that we've experienced in our 22 years of existence, 18 years, 15, 59. Okay.
Doesn't make me go through my adolescence again.
Okay, I tell you what I like to do. I like to end just a little bit early tonight because I can only take so much heaviness. I mean, not sort of, it's light, but it's also just. So we're going to end just a few minutes early. We'll end now and we'll continue with this. But I want everybody to join me that in the course of this week, we're going to look at this again. We're actually going to put it in our prayer books, in our Sidurim. And before we daven, we're going to take it out and read it. Kind of remind ourselves what this is all about. Can we do that together? We'll go on a journey.
We'll do it in large print.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.